We have brand new polls regarding the 2024 presidential election in November, and we're seeing a similar map that we saw a few weeks ago, with a few changes that have slightly shifted the map in favor of former President Trump. But will it be enough to take back the White House, or will Vice President Kamala Harris be the first female U.S. president? While I'm filling out the safe states for both candidates, it's important to note that these early polls can be unpredictable. Safe states are those that consistently lean toward one party in most elections, and they are unlikely to change hands in 2024. For former President Trump, these include strongholds like much of the South and rural states in the Midwest. Meanwhile, for Vice President Harris, you can expect the West Coast states like California, Oregon, and Washington to remain safely Democratic, along with parts of the Northeast, such as New York and Massachusetts. We have seen some upset regarding New York and Oregon shifting a bit more to the right, but it won't change who they'll vote for in the end. But the real battlegrounds, as always, lie in the swing states. These states are critical because they don't have a consistent party preference and can swing the entire election one way or the other. States like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, crucial Rust Belt states that were pivotal in the 2016 and 2020 elections, are once again in the spotlight. Meanwhile, states like Arizona and Georgia, which flipped blue in 2020 for the first time in decades, will be key targets for both campaigns. New polling from these swing states shows mixed results, with Trump gaining ground in Pennsylvania and Michigan, while Harris remains competitive in North Carolina and Wisconsin. These fluctuations underscore how fluid the race is at this point. We're still a few weeks away from November, and a lot can happen. Debates, campaign strategies, or major events could shift public opinion dramatically. We saw this happen with the attempt on former President Trump's life. What remains clear is that the 2024 election is shaping up to be another highly contested race, where every vote in these key states will count. Keep an eye on these polls, but remember, they are just one piece of the puzzle leading up to Election Day. Minnesota is a state that is frequently put in the battleground category, but if we look at the current polls, it is just not even close. Harris is practically guaranteed to win this state. We'll put it in safe blue. Now we'll look at the latest polls regarding these swing states. First off, we have Arizona. This race was extremely close in 2020, and it remains so in 2024. If we take a look at the polls over here, we have conflicting reports, but most of the more recent polls are putting Donald Trump in the lead by a couple percentage points. That puts them in the tilt red category, which is when the respective candidate is only ahead by 1 to 3% in the polls. These often lie within the margin of error. So even though Harris is behind in a lot of these, she could pull a surprise victory in Arizona, like Biden did in 2020. Of course, we'll know closer to Election Day, so subscribe to stay updated. Nevada is a state that some right-leaning pollsters have been predicting Trump will win, but that's just not the case here. We can see Harris leads basically in all of these. It is closer than what it was in 2020, but she is still the favorite to win it, putting it in the tilt blue category. Another thing to mention with Nevada is that although it has been shifting to the right, electing a Republican governor, the Democrat supporters show up to the polls on Election Day, especially when it comes to the presidential election. So she will almost certainly win this state no matter what. However, it's only a couple electoral points in the grand scheme. A state she will want to win is Wisconsin. Now, the polls in Wisconsin back in 2020 heavily favored Biden, but he ended up winning it by a very small margin. Just something to note. If we're looking at the polls this time around, the former president is leading in quite a few polls here, unlike what we saw back in 2020. Hopefully these pollsters have updated their polling methods, and these ones this year are much more accurate. It is a possibility that they, in a way, overcorrected themselves and are polling Trump better than the actual voter sentiment. But as of now, Wisconsin is predicted to go to the Democrats once again by a very slim margin. This will put them in the tilt blue category. But once again, this falls within these polls' margin of error, and Trump has been gaining ground in this state. So we will see how this state changes as time progresses. Next, we have Michigan, which has taken a surprise turn in favor of the former president. If we look back at 2020, he lost this state by almost a 3-point margin, but now the polls are predicting for him to win it. Now, it is highly unlikely Michigan and Wisconsin vote for different candidates because they both tend to vote for the winning candidate each election these past several elections. But this may be the outlier. The race is neck and neck. Now, both candidates need to win 2 states in whatever combination in order to win. We'll start down here in Georgia, a very competitive state in 2020, one that caused a lot of controversy amongst Republicans. And if we look at the current polls, it is looking to be just as close, with this time the slight edge going in favor of Donald Trump. This will put Georgia in the tilt red category. Not looking great for the vice president. If we look over here for North Carolina, however, she leads in this current poll. But it still isn't enough. North Carolina voting for Trump a 3rd time in a row will push him over the edge for a very narrow victory. If we look at Pennsylvania now, it actually shows a tie currently, so we'll leave it in the toss-up category. But it doesn't matter. Even if Harris won Pennsylvania, a highly desired state for both parties, she would still lose based on current polling. But there is still time for the polls to change, and polls can and have been wrong before. Stay tuned for our next video, which will be our prediction on who will win the presidency this election. At Groundhog Politics, we dive deep into the critical polling trends and political landscape shaping the 2024 elections. If you're passionate about understanding the numbers, predictions, and key issues driving this election cycle, you're in the right place. But creating quality, independent political content takes time and resources. That's where you come in. By supporting us on buymeacoffee.com/groundhogpolitics, you'll help us keep the channel running and bring you even more in-depth analysis, exclusive content, and timely updates on the biggest stories of the election season. Every coffee fuels more content and keeps Groundhog Politics independent, unbiased, and focused on delivering the insights that matter most. Join the movement. Support Groundhog Politics today.